This week, big green dome, deep blue sea, and that yellow jersey. The 8 planets of our solar system, all unique and instantly recognizable. And don't they look amazing from our viewing podium here in outer space? Now, what we really wanted to show you here is just how good visual effects have become. Not only does the graphics computer generate all of these lovely images, but as the cameras move about, the objects and the background appear to stay in their correct positions. Now, this is not easy. Now, this technology originally came from the movies and now it's come to TV. So, here we are in the BBC's virtual studio, and the first thing that you will notice is obviously that the graphics computer replaces anything that's green with the background. But in order to draw all of the objects in the right place in 3D space, the computer needs to know exactly where the cameras are, so it can draw everything from the right angle. And that's why all of the cameras have this set of reflective tracking balls on top of them. It also means that I can take my own set of tracking balls and turn this into a virtual handheld camera that I can fly through the scene. So there's Mercury and Venus, Earth, Mars coming round past Jupiter, just duck under Saturn, and there's Uranus and Neptune. And here's the thing, just as we're getting used to having this much fun in a TV studio, at the top end of the movie industry, they're getting ready for something even more incredible. Here's Mark Chislak in Los Angeles.
The next big leap in cinematic technology could be upon us. Called Intel Studios, this is the first time a crew has been allowed to even catch a glimpse behind the scenes of this state-of-the-art equipment. This space is designed to film in 360 degrees, a technique known as volumetric capture. Diego Priluski has worked on the visual effects for movies like Gravity and Warhorse. Now he's heading up this operation. Wow, so this is your volumetric space.
It is indeed.
It's pretty big.
It is the largest currently in the world. It's currently focused on large-scale volumetric capture, and it's a unique space that we have built dedicated for the methodologies of filmmaking volumetric.
Can we take a look inside your dome, please? Wowee. That's a lot of green.
That's a lot of green, it's a lot of space, and a lot of cameras.
How many cameras have you got in here?
We currently have more than 100 cameras. It really changed between production and production. Our goal really is to, how do you have enough sensors to capture the entire information from any angle? So as you can see around, it's really a variation of angles and positions that really enables you to capture every bit of information from any direction.
In this space, a scene can be performed once, but is recorded on all of those cameras surrounding the actors, so every single angle is covered. The individual shots are pumped via fibre optic cable to dedicated servers, which then process the images into a point cloud. The point cloud is a 3D, 360-degree representation of the entire studio. The action can then be watched from any angle the viewer desires. Once the decisions have been made about where to position the camera, the action is cleaned up using VFX and the scene is complete. This particular scene was attempted several times, but this clip was made from shots all captured on the 15th attempt.
You can relight that scene, you can integrate, of course, virtual sets around that, but the key thing is that you can keep that live performance, and you can keep that truly capture of the actors, the truly presence that they have into the interaction between them. And once you have digitized all that information, or once you have basically generated this volumetric immersive data, you can really walk inside the space, either on a virtual space or either just with a virtual camera and reshoot the entire scene again.
The filming process, with its 100+ cameras all filming at once, generates a massive amount of data, all of which is processed and stitched together on site. In total, there's 10 petabytes of storage in here. That's the equivalent of 133 years of high-def video. So far, Paramount Pictures have penned a deal to use this space for upcoming projects. Because the studio dome separates the filming from the crew controlling the kit, directing the action is similar to directing in a modern news studio.
Okay, so do you want to get in stage? Get ready?
Yeah.
So no suits, no motion capture things. It's you and your wardrobe that will be the performance.
So, this is my opportunity to try out this volumetric studio. I'm used to working with one or a couple of cameras. It's going to be a bit different working with over 100 of them. And they will be able to capture from every single conceivable angle me attempting to get this ball into that hoop. Let's try that again. This time, the team add virtual backgrounds and create a seamless moving shot made from the 100 individual camera captures. And the crowd goes wild. Creating this shot isn't quick though. This one took about 150 hours to make.
As we look at filmmaking, we want to create that transition. How do you can immerse into these worlds and into these experiences, but with the real actors, with the real performance.
Hello and welcome to the Week in Tech. It was the week that Facebook censored nude paintings from Flemish master Rubens, an underground lake of liquid water was discovered on Mars, and here on Earth, Walmart announced a new self-driving grocery delivery service partnering with Google's Waymo. It was also the week that a team of German engineering students set a new Hyperloop speed record of 467 kilometers per hour. The team from Munich broke the record they set last year by 50%. Heathrow and JFK airports began testing new 3D scanners for carry-on luggage, which could put an end to the ban on large liquids in handbags. The trial uses computerized tomography to see inside the bags, so you don't have to take out your laptop or liquids separately. Blockchain technology behind the cryptocurrency Bitcoin is being considered to keep track of cannabis transactions in Canada. The country's health ministry wants to monitor sales while keeping users' data private. The drug will be legalized in Canada in October this year. One of the team behind the popular party game Cards Against Humanity launched an unusual online dating simulator this week where you can infiltrate and date members of the so-called Islamic State. Carly Ismaili, the Iranian-American creator, said she wants the satirical sim to push boundaries and dismantle racial stereotypes. And finally, it looks like a lot of fun, but a new roller shoe from the company Segway will be banned in the UK. The self-balancing drifts cost $399 and reach top speeds of 12 kilometers an hour. But under the UK Highways Act of 1835, they're classified as carriages and are to be banned from the pavement. No, aliens haven't landed on Earth. This is London's Royal Albert Hall, which became a giant canvas for an amazing light show to start the BBC Proms. Powered by 20 laser projectors, it took the team a week to set up outside the hall. Called 14 to 18 Now, it's set to music composed by Anna Meredith, inspired by communication methods used in World War I.
These are the 5 movements, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the kind of rough shapes. This is spin, this is field postcard, but nothing really musical detail-wise, just shapes.
Creating the shapes to match the music was the work of 59 productions, who worked on illustrating the telegrams sent by soldiers and even code breaking. And this is where the team practices the projections. They create these tiny 3D printed scale models of buildings. This one is the Usher Hall in Edinburgh. And instead of using 10 or 20 projectors, here they use just 2 to create the images on the building. It's incredible.
The process for us was to go to Edinburgh. We did a laser scan of that square and that building, so we have an accurate 3D model. We take that model, we use that for all animation. We do preview on a screen, obviously, but at the last stage of the project, we see things on a model because it gives you a real sense of how content moves around corners and how things feel a bit more tangibly than on a screen.
59 Productions have previously created light shows for the Guggenheim Museum in New York and the Sydney Opera House, but its next project is going to focus on the sound of minutes of silence in a dark room with no light at all.
We like to try and do things that are quite different and surprise audiences, so sometimes it's huge scale and colour and big crowds, and sometimes it's intimate and small in museums.
The next chance to see 5 Telegrams is at the opening of the Edinburgh International Festival on August 3rd.
That was Jen at the Royal Albert Hall. Now, Le Tour de France is coming to an end this week. The monumental 3,351-kilometre race is now 115 years old. Fans love its epic proportions and its grueling pace, but this year they may also be able to enjoy lots and lots of lovely data. Because analytics and machine learning are coming to one of the oldest sporting competitions in the world, and Kat Hawkins went to find out how.
This year's Tour de France is taking place against the same beautiful French mountains as always, but there's a big difference this year. Technology and data is playing more of a role than ever before. Cycling is becoming increasingly data-driven, and for good reason. Masses of data can be collected, and in a sport of fine margins and superhuman endurance, those insights are the key to energy efficiency, strategy and gains.
We look at many things. We look at, obviously heart rate, we look at power data, and their maximum powers and their altitude and elevation gain. So we look at that and we see how the riders are building, and we leverage that data to try and build them to be better and stronger and, in stage races.
But how is the data collected and transmitted? That's where these little devices come in. It may not look like much, but this small clip-on device is on the back of every bike taking part in the Tour de France this year, and it's actually been revolutionary. The sensors on the bike send real-time location data to a nearby vehicle, which then beams up to a following helicopter. It's then sent to the data truck for real-time analytics. And this is where the magic happens. From bike to motorbike to helicopter to here, this is where all the data for the Tour de France is being stored. The data truck is where data is analysed, enriched and visualised for broadcasters and teams. There's even enough data for machine learning algorithms to get to work. The depth of data analytics produced from simply a GPS device is staggering. Contextual data such as 3D maps, weather, gradient, and rider information is also added to bring the data to life. During the race, riders wear earpieces, and following close behind them is the data car, where the team analyst is dissecting the data and feeding them live information. And so what happens in here is quite an important place, isn't it?
Imagine if you have a comms office when you're trying to fly a rocket to the moon, and just have that just feel like we're that place in NASA, where all the details come in, and they come in from all directions, and then we send out one message to the riders.
Hundreds of data sets are analysed, from competitor tactics to live course conditions.
So we analyse all of the climbs, the gradients of the climbs, the road surfaces, the width of the roads, any road furniture, anything that, coming around a blind corner and there's a pedestrian crossing, and all these kinds of things we try to find. On the Tour de France, with restrictions and sponsorship deals, we don't get any heart rate and power data, but we do get location, which is absolutely crucial because we can make decisions much, much quicker.
Okay, so we're in the race. This is happening, this is live. What are we saying to our riders?
So we're saying, come on, Serge. You've got 250 more metres hard. Round the next corner, the hairpin, you can't see it, but it flattens off for 250 metres. You'll get some respite. We've got drinks in 400 metres, so you're getting hot, cool down, take your drinks, and we've only got 10k to the finish. Good lad, keep fighting.
Yeah, nice. So I can see automatically that the psychological impact of that is huge. But how do the cyclists themselves feel about data in their sport? Having everything about you measured and tracked can have its downsides.
Of course, a lot of teams are trying to, keep it secretive because, of course, when you're racing to win the Tour de France, you don't really want to give your competitors that advantage.
People say, oh, it's now just turning into F1, it's just robots, talking to robots. What do you say to those people?
Yeah, it's more than that, A robot doesn't have to put the effort in.
biometric data isn't actually transmitted live, but that isn't because of technical limitations.
The data ownership between the rider, the teams, the race owners is still quite complex. And so at the moment, the data that we do have permission to collect and to publish is positioning data that we can then tell stories about speed, gradient, and positioning. It is possible to take biometric data, and actually we've piloted that at the Tour of California a couple of years ago, and also in a stadium environment. But for the teams, it's also very sensitive, because that biometric data also gives great competitive insight around how hard that rider's working to perform in the way they're doing.
As well as sponsoring their own team, Dimension Data is the technology company behind all the data collected for the Tour de France. Their technology has managed to overcome problems unique to this epic race.
We have been studying this tracking system for 15 years, 20 years. The big thing we have to deal with is we're in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the mountain. The weather condition can be terrific sometimes, so this is the main thing, to be able, logistically speaking, to install the tracker every day and give information in real time. That is the most complicated thing.
From data centre to road race, there's 20 kilometres to go, 20-kilometre wind speeds. The final's coming up.
That was Kat Hawkins at the Tour de France. Now, I can guarantee you that none of those riders had a bike frame anything like this. Not only is this incredibly light, just 600 grams, but it is loaded with technology. And it's being developed here in rural England, just by the duck pond. Yep, just past the Hartney-Wintney village green in a converted cow barn, an ex-Rolls-Royce aerodynamicist designed this revolutionary new frame. Stuart Abbott has embedded sensors inside it, which send live data into the cloud to be analysed by cycling teams or casual cyclists alike.
There are an accelerometer in the rear chainstay here. There's also temperature, pressure and humidity.
The frame is made in a mould like this from many layers of this carbon composite, but onto one layer of the composite they print the circuitry for the sensors and the conductive pathways that send the data around the frame. And all of this is made from graphene.
We have connected the sensors using graphene printed circuitry. I know the temperature, the humidity, the air pressure, the amount of watts you're pushing. I know how much you're deforming the frame. I know the headwind, the tailwind, and by pulling all that over together, I can say, you should stop.
And in the future, you want to exploit other properties of graphene to do something pretty incredible to this frame?
Yeah, we want to actually be able to change the shape of the frame dynamically based upon the environmental conditions that are there at the time.
So while you're riding, your bike could change shape?
So while you're riding, it won't be as much as Optimus Prime, you know, that kind of thing, but while you're riding, you may well have positioned intelligent materials over the frame that cause it to change shape to improve the aerodynamic efficiency.
I tell you, the idea of pedalling hard in this heat wave, not for me. But of course, for many, working for hours on end in the baking sun is just par for the course, and that includes the Australian Wildlife Services. Now, at the moment, they are working to protect a very special part of the Great Barrier Reef, and Nick Queck has been to meet the rangers who are really working up a sweat.
Rain Island, the Great Barrier Reef. Nesting ground to the world's largest collection of green turtles. Each year, 60,000 of these endangered creatures migrate here to give birth. But their population is in decline. So, the Wildlife Services and the Great Barrier Reef Foundation have upped their game.
It's about intervening. We're actually actively going in and doing things at Rain Island. We're moving sand around with machinery, we're rescuing turtles, we're putting up fences. We're using and embracing technology, and that's a big mind shift from how parks have been managed in the past. So Rain Island is unique in that it has a Torres Strait Islander traditional owner group and an Aboriginal mainland traditional group.
For Jimmy and Peter, their connection with Rain Island stretches far into their ancestral past.
I reckon it's best for us to get involved doing those technologies so we can help the parks and wildlife ranges.
Turtles need, good conditions. The whole world needs, to look after this place that we call home,
To get to Rain Island, it's quite a mission. Takes our boat, which does 18 knots, about 24 hours in a straight from Cairns. Very remote island. 16 of us go over. We sleep on the boat during the day generally and do all our turtle work at night. Do 12-hour shifts at least.
The island is so remote, the team can only visit a few times per year.
We satellite tag turtles. It's got very good GPS data. We can look how often the turtle comes up, how long she spends on the beach at night, whether she comes back up the next night. So we know whether she nested successfully, so we can track over the whole season how many attempts she made to lay and then how many times she laid successfully, which is really important information for us.
Tina's team also do a visual count, including a good old bucket of paint and a clicker.
We paint them, they go back out to sea. The next day or the next few days we do what's called a painted turtle count.
It's a manual process that takes ages from the back of a boat.
The last 2 seasons we have trialled using a drone. It takes 15 minutes or so to do. Beautiful shots as well.
The wide snapshot captured from the drone makes counting much faster and more reliable. The eye in the sky is helping them monitor rare seabirds more effectively too.
Anything that helps us monitor Rain Island when we're not there is great. We use remote cameras for that now.
They've installed a broadband network to beam the pictures back to base.
So I can sit at my computer in the office and log on to Rain Island and see how many turtles are coming in at a night. 90% of the northern Great Barrier Reef turtles, green turtles, nest at Rain. If that population collapses, that's most of the turtles in the northern Great Barrier Reef, in Torres Strait, around to the Gulf, to Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands. So our turtles are not just our turtles at Rain, they migrate all around that whole northern region. So the population collapsing would have massive impacts on those communities.
And these native communities are doing what they can to help. Today, they're getting their boating licence, training from the Parks and Wildlife Service.
For us to be able to, because of our history we have for Rain back in trading-wise, our ancestors used to go over the canoes. We got that connection now today for Rain Island because of traditional rights that we have in history and songs and whatever.
They use the iPads that we have the turtle database and all the turtle monitoring's done on. They also get involved with helping out with the drone work and the surveying.
And it'd be good to learn a lot more, because we're living in a modern world and we've got to keep up. There's not too many old people left. We're the next ones in line, man, so we're going to learn as much as we can so we can pass it down to our kids and their kids can pass it down to their kids,
Look after yourself, mate.
Indigenous and non-Indigenous. We all have to work together.
I am truly privileged to have this job and be able to get to go to Rain Island, which is an incredibly unique place. And yeah, it does bring a bit of a tear to your eye when you see your first turtle laying her first clutch of eggs in front of you, or a turtle that you rescued. Gives you a nice fuzzy feeling.
Oh, how brilliant is that? That's Nick Queck in Australia, and that's it from us for this week. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter at BBC Click and on Facebook too, where you'll find loads of extra tech news and behind the scenes photos throughout the week. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.